It's that unknown, and yeah, I've got it, but was it my parents? Is it something I've eaten? Is it diet? Is it my lifestyle?
Every year, 2.8 million people are diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. That means every 5 minutes, someone somewhere in the world is told they have the disease. And until very recently, no one could tell them why.
Mick Slater has been living with multiple sclerosis for most of his adult life.
Mick, when did you first know you had MS?
1998, I guess. I lived in a flat. I was walking through it, made a cup of tea, turned around, and there was a trail of blood, and that cut my foot, and I didn't realise that cut it. I couldn't feel it.
So no feeling in your foot?
No feeling in my foot at all. It was my left foot, and it was cut quite badly, and I didn't realise I'd done it.
So that was 24 years ago. How has life been since then?
Interesting, to say the least. I was a police officer. I ended up having to be medically retired in 2002 because I couldn't do the full role of a police officer anymore.
Only 4 years after your diagnosis?
4 years after diagnosis. I mean, they may have kept me, but I wouldn't have been doing the role of a police officer. And things have deteriorated slowly. I mean, post-diagnosis, I was hit with a lot of symptoms, so I lost my eyesight for a short period of time.
Really?
Yes, really. I lost the ability to see contrast, so I couldn't differentiate between pavement and road, so I had to stop driving. Otherwise, there'd have been a lot of pedestrians on my bonnet, which wouldn't have been good. And then it sort of settled into everything waist down for me, in terms of walking, balance. Memory's a bit of an issue sometimes, so I have to pause and think about words that I can't pull to the front of my mind.
When they diagnosed you, did they have any idea what caused it at that time?
No. And all the research at the time said we can't identify specifically what the cause might be. There was lots and lots of sort of anecdotal tales out there about what might be the cause. Things about living on the coast, and a mainly seafood diet meant you were less likely to get MS than if you lived in land and had a meat-based diet, where you were more likely to get MS. There was some suggestion, interestingly enough, that links to the latest research, that there was a possibility you might have had a viral infection, but it would have lain dormant for a period of time and then suddenly reappeared and caused problems. But nobody could identify what that was.
And that speculation about a virus turned out to be correct.
Now, Epstein-Barr, it's a very common virus, correct?
Yes, it infects about 95% or more of all people.
Alberto Ascherio is a professor of epidemiology at Harvard Medical School. One of his key interests is multiple sclerosis.
When I was growing up, I remember it was always a joke in American sitcoms. At some point, everybody got mono or mononucleosis, which is another name for Epstein-Barr.
Right.
But it's actually quite a serious virus, isn't it?
It can be. Most people are infected in early childhood, and then you don't get any symptom. If you're not infected in childhood and you're infected as an adolescent, then you have about 40-50% chance of getting mono. And mono can be very serious in some cases, yes.
So how long have you and other colleagues suspected a link between Epstein-Barr and multiple sclerosis?
Well, the suspicion started back in the 1980s because the epidemiology of mono is similar to the epidemiology of multiple sclerosis. Both diseases are rare in the tropics. They're rare in Asia. They tend to be more common in Europe and the United States. So they have some similarity that brought up this comparison.
But to prove beyond doubt a causal relationship between the virus and MS, a very large sample was needed. That's where the American military came in. All US service personnel have regular blood samples taken, which could be checked for the presence of the Epstein-Barr virus.
We needed a very large population, over 10 million people, because most adults are infected with the Epstein-Barr virus. So it's not easy to find a sufficient number of individuals who are not infected. So this very large population was followed longitudinally for over 10 years on average. And we found, the temporal sequence that the Epstein-Barr virus infection virtually always precede the clinical onset of multiple sclerosis.
By how much?
Well, there is a variable interval, an average of 5 years. So the virus establishes a lifelong persistent infection in cells of our immune system. They are called B cells. So it remains there for life and has a tendency to reactivate and to proliferate. So it's possible that the Epstein-Barr virus has transformed the B cells of the immune system in a way that they act in an abnormal way. They don't respond to the regulatory signal that we normally have, and that leads to destruction of myelin.
The myelin the professor is referring to is the fatty tissue or myelin sheaths that surround nerve cells. When these are damaged, nerve impulses slow down or even stop, causing the kind of neurological symptoms that people like Mick have to learn to live with.
So now, with this longitudinal study with the American military, you're now completely convinced that the Epstein-Barr virus is the cause of multiple sclerosis.
Yes, basically, if you're not infected with the Epstein-Barr virus, you will not get MS. The risk is virtually zero if you are not infected with the Epstein-Barr virus.
So why do some people get it and some don't? Because most of us have had Epstein-Barr, but very few of us have multiple sclerosis.
Yes, absolutely. And this is giving the opportunity to reassure any listener that even if they're Epstein-Barr virus infected, they had mono, the risk of multiple sclerosis is still very low, less than 1 in 100 or 1 in 200 over the lifetime. Why that is, there are some factors that we know influence the risk, and those are genetic predisposition, vitamin D deficiency, childhood obesity, and cigarette smoking. But I think I want to stress that a common virus causing a rare disease is more the rule than the exception. That is the way viruses behave. So the large majority of people has very few symptoms, and just a few get severely sick and get complications. That's a common behavior among viruses.
Recent experience with COVID-19 begs the question whether a vaccine could be the solution.
There is a bit of complexity, I have to say, because vaccine can have different effects. The ideal vaccine is a vaccine that prevents infection with the Epstein-Barr virus. That vaccine would prevent the disease. But some vaccines just modify the immune response of the host of the virus. And those vaccines could perhaps reduce the risk of multiple sclerosis, but we don't know until we have a vaccine and we see how it affects the host-virus relation.
So how does it feel now that they appear to know, as much as science knows anything, that this is caused by the Epstein-Barr virus?
Yeah, it makes a big difference because it's that unknown, and I've got it, but was it my parents? Is it something I've eaten? Is it diet? Is it my lifestyle? Or it's a virus that's the cause of it? And it's good to know that. As I say, I can't do anything about that, but at least it's useful to know that that might be the cause of it, and it's not something I've done, and it's not something that has come out of my lifestyle or things that I've been doing.
Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and hit the bell button below for notifications. We'll see you next time.